Sex is just kind of a thing that people do when they don't know what they're doing. And making love is something that you're sure about, you know what I mean? It's like something that's a definite. It's not a one-night stand. It's not, hey, I've been going out with you. Hey, let's go, you know? I'm drunk, let's do something. It's, you know, something that's been there for a long time that I think is okay. Once it's like understood. When it's not understood, it shouldn't be done, you know? Well, I think I love him, but, oh, well, it doesn't matter. I think he's really cute and he's really attractive, so I'm gonna, you know, that's not it. It's more like, I don't know, it should be an emotion, not a thing.
To just describe sex, it's just something physical that goes on between two people. That doesn't mean they love each other. It doesn't mean they care about each other. It doesn't even mean that they're gonna be with the person in a week, let alone the rest of their life. I don't think that that a lot of people take sex very seriously.
I think love has a lot to do with it, but once again, I think a lot of guys will lie to a girl who wants to be in love. You know, I love you, baby, come on, let's do this, it feels right. You know, and they'll say that just to trick him into doing it, and the girl will, and then he'll get bored with her and leave.
To me, I mean, I know you guys are probably going to be BS, but sex really isn't that important. I mean, if it's there, it's there. If it's not, you'll live. I mean, the person you're sitting next to in bed or the person whose ring you're wearing, that's the important thing. And the physical part of it, I mean, yeah, it'd be nice to have like every other second or two, but you'll live.
Sometimes it's the moment and it's just not the person. I mean, I had about 6 months of moments that I thought I loved until we broke up and I realized, God, I'm so glad we broke up. You know what I mean? How many times does that happen to me? Now, I'm just looking at you because I know you're in a relationship right now where you're in love. Okay, and I'm not saying teenagers can't be in love because it's a definite possibility, but everybody screws it up so much, you know what I mean? It's like I think, oh my God, I'm in love. I mean, I talk to girls who are in love every week with a different guy. You know what I mean? I mean, I say the word love slightly, like, oh my God, I'm in love again, you know, jokingly. But I know people are like, I am so in love, I am ready, I am so, you know, it's like, same, different guy last week, same time, no way, you know? I mean, it's like, there's, I don't know, there's just so many, you just have to like think about it, you know what I mean? Like, where you're at, who you're with, what the time is, and thinking, as a teenager, you grow, you know what I mean? You're constantly growing and you're changing, your mind's constantly changing, and at this point, you know, your likes are changing, and this guy's likes are changing. And by the time you're 25, are you going to have the same likes as you did when you were 17 years old? I highly doubt, and if you do, it's an amazing.
A lot of times I think teenagers misunderstand love. To me, like, I love my parents. If someone gave me a choice of whether I wanted my mom to die or me, I'd think about that, and I might say me. You know, are you going to do that for this boyfriend that you're having sex with? Are you going to say, you know, if someone holds a gun to him and says, either he dies or you, are you going to say, yeah, I want me to die?
One of my concerns is, you know, that by the time that I'm an adult and I want to get married, that, you know, it's not going to be anything special anymore. Making love to a person, having sex.
I think, seriously, my main worry is the threat of AIDS, or, I mean, that's just it. That's life or death. You're going to die, most likely, you know, within time if you get AIDS. I think about that a lot because I've had someone die close to me. And I mean, that just makes me think a lot deeper about death. And I mean, sure, you know, if you got pregnant, that would be terrible. But, you know, if you're protecting yourself against AIDS, you're also protecting yourself against getting pregnant.
People who are, you know, they think, well, you know, I don't have sex with the same, you know, with the same sex, so I'm not, you know, I don't have the chance of getting it. I think they don't think that it's a possibility. Just like, you know, people who talk about, you know, well, you know, I just saw a car accident, but, you know, that wouldn't have been me. I wouldn't have, you know, gotten in that car accident. I wouldn't have been killed in a car accident. I think people would go at the attitude like that as they would as, you know, I won't get AIDS because I'm smarter than that.
Hi, we're the cast of Teenage, and we want you to join us as we discover that AIDS knows your name.
if someone in my age group thinks about something that's going to be bad, like AIDS, then it's like they become outcasted because they choose not to do something that they think is wrong.
I think teenagers believe that it won't happen to them because it's a drug user disease, it's a gay disease, or oh, I'm going to live forever. My friends are going to live forever, you know. Teenagers drink and drive. I'm not going to get in a car accident and die, you know. Or, I mean, even adults drink and drive. I'm not going to get in a car accident and die. They think they're going to live forever.
The reason I think the message is harder to get across to teenagers regarding HIV infection than other things, such as general sexually transmitted diseases or even pregnancy, is that this disease is almost unbelievable. Most teenagers would prefer to think, even if they were to contract a sexually transmitted disease, it is treatable and they could be cured and they never have to worry about it again. But when you begin to tell them that they could contract a disease for which there is currently no cure, they would rather not hear about that. So, of course, they place themselves in a position of thinking, this doesn't relate to me, this isn't going to happen to me, there's no way I can catch this disease because I can't deal with it, it's too difficult.
Having sex doesn't mean just intercourse. Or making love doesn't mean just intercourse. So I think teens would have to figure out for them what they're happy with. If they, you know, condoms are an answer, but so is abstinence.
It's easy to be intimate. You can be intimate with someone by holding their hand. You can be intimate just by kissing. You don't have to go all the way and be making love in order to just be intimate. You can be intimate with somebody by hugging them or by holding them. That's very important.
I didn't know there's a lot of people that died of AIDS. I didn't know it was this much people. I didn't know it was that much people.
The reluctance that teenagers have to talk about sex and some of the fears they have in discussing that with other people is a long history in this country. Most teenagers have not felt particularly welcome to discuss this. In fact, it's sort of a ready-made secret. I mean, adults pretend that they never thought about sex during their teenage years, much less ever engaged in it. And yet, when we all look back in our family trees, we see people who got pregnant before they were married. We see all kinds of things that we pretend never existed then, and somehow it's all unique and new for teenagers now. So teenagers often don't feel very particularly welcome to discuss their issues relating to sexuality or their practices because of the judgment that's often passed on them. And this is true in the medical community, not just among teachers and parents. But there are many physicians who would be quick to give a sermon and a lecture to a patient who said, gee, I'm engaging in intercourse, you know, can I have some form of birth control? Most teenagers, if they admit that these days, will simply get a lecture about how they should completely abstain. While that's a good idea, I think realistically teenagers aren't going to suddenly stop having intercourse. In fact, this problem of having intercourse before marriage and having intercourse as teenagers will go on. It's also very uncomfortable teenagers. I mean, some of them are not having fun. They're having intercourse but find it's really a drag because they don't understand what's going on. They're uncomfortable with that level of intimacy. They feel like they have to perform for a partner who expects to have sex. They're not sure they're doing things correctly. They're not sure they're safe in terms of pregnancy or infection, but they feel like they have to do it. So there's a lot of pressure among teenagers by their own peers to somehow perform sexually when they would in fact prefer to wait. But it's also hard to get the message that they can wait. Adults are sort of reticent to say that, say it's okay not to have sex, it's okay to wait. So there isn't, in my opinion, a lot of dialogue going on between the adult generation and the adolescent generation about sex. And even in an office where I don't have the parents present and I'm seeing a teenager, to begin to address those issues of sexuality, there's always a lot of reluctance on the teenager's part to sort of open up and talk about that. And it's not simply a confidentiality issue. They're pretty uncomfortable with the topic. I mean, good heavens, look how uncomfortable adults are, much less teenagers, where this is all sort of brand new to them.
Now I think twice if I want to do anything with somebody, you know. It's scary. I mean, seriously, you can get it from anybody now, so you got to use protection and everything, so it's kind of scary.
Women are going to be, I think, more affected by it in terms of contracting HIV the HIV virus. I think right now women are very affected by it, by the fact that loved ones, brothers, husbands, sons are all dying, cousins, I mean, things like that, they're dying. Good friends, very good friends are dying, and it makes an impact. And I think because the dormancy stage of the HIV virus is so long, we don't know what's going to happen in another 10 years. I mean, it could be that women are going to all be infected in 10 years, and the men will be taking care of us, instead of the women taking care of the men now.
The difference between men and women acquiring this disease in this country is an interesting one that's been changing. In the early statistics available for adult population, it was largely a male disease, in fact, largely a male homosexual disease, among people who were in their 20s and 30s and 40s. We're seeing the age group drop a little bit. We're also seeing a shift to a more even balance between males and females. It's certainly not an even balance yet, but some of the studies that have been done in the adolescent and young adult population screening for HIV infection now, not for AIDS disease, the ratio between males and females is much closer to a 1-to-1 ratio. So the concept that females were somehow protected against getting this infection, or that somehow they would be immune from having the problems that we have seen in males in the past, particularly the adult population, appears not to be true. In countries where the transmission is more through heterosexual contact or through IV drug use, you see it just as prevalently among females as you do among males.
I found out my father had AIDS. He told me about 5 months before he died. I had suspected it before. About 9 months before that, he told me he had Kaposi sarcoma, but he didn't come out and say that he had AIDS.
The question of where the AIDS virus came from is still an unknown question, which is open to a lot of medical research. We do know that the disease that we understand as AIDS was first seen in the late 1970s and the early 1980s in this country. And it's important to differentiate between the AIDS disease and HIV infection, because a patient can become infected with the virus that causes AIDS and yet carry that virus for 5 or 10 years before they actually become ill and develop the disease that we call AIDS. That infection got introduced somehow into our population in this country now about 10 or 12 years ago. And since it has been introduced, we've seen a steady incline each year of the number of people who've contracted the infection and the number of people who go on to develop the AIDS disease.
I felt, when he told me, I felt this can't be real, this can't be happening to me. I'm from the suburbs or something like that. Or well, they'll find a cure soon. I know they will, That it was, no, this can't be happening to me, not to my family.
How do you know if your partner has HIV infection? Actually, there's no way to tell. Now, I've heard a lot of myths. Hear teenagers say, well, I can just look at someone and tell whether they have a sexually transmitted disease or HIV infection, or I can tell the way they smell or the way they walk, or honestly, I've had teenagers say I can tell the way they taste. So I think we've heard every explanation that teenagers have for how they test out a partner as to whether they have HIV infection or any sexually transmitted disease. And in fact, there is no way that they can tell. The odds are, if their partner has a sexually transmitted disease, the partner probably doesn't know it either. So there is no full, safe way in which a teenager can judge another person as to whether they have a sexually transmitted disease. Sort of the modus operandi, or the way we operate in this situation, is to assume that anybody can be infected, whether they're middle class or lower class or upper class, white or black, from the suburbs or from the city. They're at risk, potentially, of having infection. And if one's going to engage in intercourse, they should engage in safer sex and not assume that they have some magical way of telling whether somebody has an infection or not. Most people who are infected are usually surprised that they've got the infection and can't imagine how they got it when they think back through who their partners are. So there's no way to tell. But most teenagers think they can. They think they have a way to sort of figure it out. But in fact, they can't tell who's infected or not infected.
You may not have symptoms if you're just HIV positive. You may never get symptoms if you're HIV positive. You could live 10, 15 years They've now, found this sailor back in the 1950s who had HIV or AIDS. I personally have been HIV positive for 3 years, and have had AIDS for almost 2 years. And I'm still kicking, and I still do normal things and lead a really good life.
When I realized, because of my sexual activity, I could be at risk for AIDS, HIV, I went and got tested like every 3 months. And it's the longest 3 weeks in your life.
Waiting for the
Test results. Because basically, you're wanting to know if you're going to live or die.
Why do you put yourself at that risk? Why did you put yourself at that risk?
I didn't feel I was. Okay. I'm 18 years old, and I am openly gay. And I've been involved with the youth group, and they basically taught me a lot of stuff I did not know.
Yeah.
And then I realized, wait a second, some of the stuff I've been doing could possibly kill me. So I decided, well, let's find out where I can go and get the HIV test, the antibody test, and find out what I can do.
So your first test showed it? Or
no.
A couple tests?
No, I was tested, I've been tested continuously for like the past 2.5 years, like about every 3 months, and every one of those came back negative.
So each time, every 3 weeks, it was like,
It was like 30 years.
So how come after those first few times, how could you, don't you think, well, it is still a risk, and now I realized how I feel, maybe I should cut back or take some precautions or do something?
You do, but there's always that chance that you're practicing safer sex. There is no such thing as safe sex.
Except for abstinence.
Regarding safer sex and condoms, the problem is that the use of a condom is a form of safer sex. It's not a guarantee against getting a viral infection or even becoming pregnant. Now, when the condom is tested for whether or not the virus can pass through it or sperm can pass through it for that matter, the condom is very effective in preventing transmission of a virus or the sperm. But accidents do occur. So that when we say a condom is a form of safe sex, it's safer. It's certainly safer than using nothing, but it's not perfect. Now, with adolescents, when you're talking in gray zones, they're not tracking with you very well. Most teenagers want a guarantee. If I use a condom, I won't get an infection, and we don't guarantee any patient that. But if, in fact, they're going to engage in intercourse, a condom is a very good way of protecting themselves against acquiring the HIV infection or, for that matter, becoming pregnant. But it's not a 100% guarantee. The condoms break a certain percentage of the time. Sometimes they're used incorrectly. And other times there's a failure of the product for reasons that we don't understand. But that's very uncommon.
Now, are you diagnosed with AIDS, or are you just the HIV positive?
I am HIV positive.
Now, is that the same as AIDS, or is that different?
That's different.
Okay,
Meaning?
Explain.
Meaning, okay, when you're HIV positive, you have the virus in your body, the human immunodeficiency virus that causes AIDS. And when your immune system drops below a certain level, then you have AIDS, because your body can no longer fight off any diseases whatsoever. And
so there's a battle going on now?
Yes. Like, if I get a cold, my immune system will start dropping. If I don't do something to stop it from dropping.
So a simple cold you have to go to the hospital for?
No, I take as many preventive measures as I can to not get a cold. But when I do start feeling really weak, I go into the hospital, have my T-cell count taken, and that basically tells me at what level I'm at.
Are you scared?
Yes and no. You know, I found out I was HIV positive when I was 17. About 2 months before my 18th birthday. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna make it 18. Oh my God, I'm gonna make it 19. But after knowing this for however many months it's been, I don't really think that way anymore. It's just, okay, what can I do not to get sick? How can I take care of myself? That's really what I think about, but I am really scared, and I'm really scared for my friends if they may have it.
No, I think you're a really brave guy. I mean, I really do. I mean,
Yeah.
this is like, see, because I'd be scared to death. I really would.
Yeah, I was, and, okay, I lived in San Francisco for a while, and I was raped in San Francisco. And the rape took place 2 days before Christmas Eve. And I went and got tested a day or two after I was raped, and the test came back negative. But it was way too soon to tell if you had the antibody in your body. So I came back in March, and the test came back positive. And it was just like, whoa.
A resentment?
Not really. It was not really resentment for anything I did. It was...
Not for what you did.
Disbelief.
Yeah, it was, yeah, very much disbelief. It's like, no, this can't be happening. It's just too weird. You know, it's like, I'm only 17. This can't be happening.
Do you think that you believe it yet? I mean...
Sometimes I don't because, you know, I'm perfectly healthy right now. But then I realize I have friends in San Francisco and friends in Chicago who either have AIDS or have died. A good friend of my companion and I, we couldn't get a hold of him for a few months and finally got a hold of his companion. And he said, he was crying and said, you know, he almost died, but we thought he said he died. And then we moved back here from San Francisco in July, and we just heard from him a few days before Halloween that he is still alive. His immune system dropped to a T cell count of 50, which is basically dead.
From what?
His was at 600.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
he's been on AZT for like 4 years when they first approved it.
So he's alive still?
Yes, but basically he stays inside because he doesn't want to take the chance of getting sick.
Like, how, I mean, I see a lot of the stuff in the news, and most of the stuff I see in the news about AIDS is people organizing to kind of yell at the government to step up stuff. Are you kind of anxious to see what's coming out? Are you?
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, it's like, I don't want this.
Wait, I have some questions here, okay? And I'm gonna be really blunt, and because you know, you're not like void to what's, you know, what other people who aren't the same sex, or you know, aren't gay think about this. Now, what do you say to people when they say, well, fags should be shipped off to an island? You know, what do you say to that? Or what do you say, you know? I mean, because, I mean, I think that's wrong. You know, I think people who say that are wrong. But I'm curious, what do you say to that? And, I don't know.
Easily is, when I found out I could be at risk for AIDS, I changed my sexual practices. And I did everything I could to be as safe as possible. And every test came back negative. And then I was raped. Not on my own will, not something I wanted to do, something somebody else did to me.
Right, that's what I mean, though.
And
you know what I
with
mean?
those people that say that, I basically say, screw you. You should be sent off somewhere.
Yeah, really.
Because you're ignorant enough not to know what's going on.
Good.
I'm human just like you are. I'm sitting here, I just look just basically like the rest of you. I'm really no different, but I have a disease in me that people are scared of because they don't know enough about. Because it's spreading so fast, there is nothing you can really do. Last statistic I heard while I was living in San Francisco is, San Francisco is a city of 726,000. 7 new cases every day, 3 people dying every day in San Francisco. It's a city of 700,000. How long do you think before everybody in that city is HIV positive or has AIDS? And here in the Chicago area, there's 7 million people in the Chicago area, and I don't know what the number of cases diagnosed here are, but how many of those people do you think can have AIDS or be HIV positive? If any of you have had an operation and had to have a blood transfusion, even though anymore it is very slim chance because of screening, there's still the possibility.
And then there's the people that don't know they have it.
There are the people that don't know they have it. With sex, even if the man is wearing a condom, you're supposed to basically take it out after sex and take the condom off before the erection goes down. Because when the erection starts going down, which is immediately after ejaculation, the semen can seep down and through and into the person they're having sex with. The condom doesn't have to break. It's not that you don't have to have a condom on, but it can still happen. But the risk is greatly reduced, thank God, but it can still happen. Anybody that shares needles, instant target right there. Basically, any exchange of body fluids, like you guys said, yes. There are so many ways to exchange body fluids that people don't know. Saliva, the antibody has been found in saliva, but it's been so minute, they say it cannot be transmitted by that. So that's a very slim risk. And most people like, well, what about toilets and stuff like that? It's like, not unless there's blood all over it and you have a big open gash.
You're not going to sit on it.
Yes. It's just common sense. If there's like blood or something all over it, you're not going to sit on it. Especially if you have a big open gash, on your butt.
No, I'm saying, can you go on a bush?
What advice would you give, maybe, let's say, if you had a little brother or a little friend, what advice would you give that person before they are thinking of having sex? Would you tell them not to, be careful? Or?
I'd tell them definitely don't until you really know you love this person. What? Then they say, well, I know I love this person. It's like, well, how do you know?
What age? I mean, if age has anything to do with it, what do you think?
I really don't feel age has anything to do with it. It's the maturity of the person. It's how much they know. Yeah. The more they know, the better they are. Everybody talks about education. Education is the best way, but a lot of people are not getting education. It's all there is to it. I mean, I really didn't find out a lot about AIDS until my test came back positive for HIV.
To me, death is such a big thing because your whole life is waited out for this thing. You know what I mean? It's just waiting for you when you're going to die. Yeah. And all of a sudden you know that, whoa, I'm going to die. See, I don't know that I'm going to die. I've got no concept that I'm going to die because I'm invulnerable. You know what I mean? I'm a teenager, man. I'm not going to die, and if I'm dying, I'm not going to die till I'm 90. Yeah. And you know that you're going to die, so what does that do?
I thought that about at first until I started getting to know people who were HIV positive or had AIDS. Yeah. I thought, well, I'm invulnerable. And then when I started seeing people dying off and getting sick, I'm like, whoa, these people are only a few years older than me or my same age.
You said you were on your own since you were 14.
I've been kicked out of my house and in and out of shelters and back and forth.
Oh, so your parents didn't have any role, or you felt anything with them about this?
No.
Do your parents know that you're...
No, I haven't had contact with my parents. I last talked to my mother in January, but I haven't had contact with my parents really since about April of last year. So.
Why? If you don't.
Why? They don't want me around.
Do you have any other family, brothers and sisters, anything that you are close with?
I have my sister, but her fiance is very homophobic. So.
Guess you're homophobic, made me laugh.
It's. So it's really, there's no family there, there's friends, but that's really about it. I have my companion, and that's about it.
So what would you say to someone who even thinks that they might have the risk of having AIDS? Would you tell them to go out and get tested? I mean... With people I know, that's the biggest controversy. Because if you get tested, you know what you can do to help keep yourself healthy. The longer you can keep yourself healthy, the longer you'll live, period.
But if you don't, you'll die. If you know, basically you'll die. That's all there is to it. That's why people are living a lot longer now than they were before. But there's the advantage of knowing of what you can do to keep yourself healthy. And there's also the disadvantages. Even if you do come back negative, somebody finding out you have the test and put you in a high-risk group and then start discriminating against you because you wouldn't get tested.
Oh, yeah. I know someone who's been tested and nobody else in the entire world knows, and there's no way in a million years you'd ever tell anybody about yours.
Yeah. Also with insurance, if you've been tested, insurance companies can go find out if you've been tested and you don't get insurance.
Yeah.
How, now, for like people at home, how do you get tested?
How do you get tested? In the city of Chicago, there's clinics you can go to that are free, but you wait 3 weeks. You know, like I said before, they're the longest 3 weeks in your life, period. And they give you some counseling afterwards, but really there's not too much there telling you about the disease. You can go to hospitals, any county or basically public hospital, and you could have the test ran there, but it varies from $25 to $50 for the test.